So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you for enjoying today's UKATA webinar. My name's Kellyanne Smith. Some of you may know me, some of you may not, but I am the events and coordinator here at UKATA, and I'll be hosting this alongside with Emma today. So again, thank you for joining. So today our webinar is on the financial impact of implementing, can't talk today, sound wellbeing policies and procedures in the workplace. So before we start, I'm just going to go through some housekeeping rules. So again, this webinar will run for about an hour, give or take. At the end, there is opportunity for a question and answer session at the end. During Emma's presentation, you'll see that there is a Q&A box. If you want to put your questions during the presentation, that's fine, and we will address them at the end. As the Q&A session happens, please feel free to put your question in. This is what the webinars are about. Let's engage as much as we can. So that'd be great. Everyone will receive Emma's presentation notes and the recording of the webinar. I think it's beneficial that everyone reflects and refreshes afterwards, as I think there's a lot that happens when you watch and you wish you asked this, that, but so yeah, you'll get the recording and the presentation notes. Any technical issues, as some of you may experience, if you just log out, log back in, you should be on your way. If you do struggle, just pop something in the chat box and I can support you from there. So without further ado, let's welcome Emma. So big thank you for this today, Emma, and over to you. Thank you.
Okay, now this, don't go yet, because this is the hardest bit of the entire morning, because I have to share a screen without cutting anybody off or breaking the whole internet world. So Kellyanne, can you tell me when you can see that? You can see right, hang on, because I now need to do one more thing, which is, there we go. Okay, can you still see my screen?
Yep, can see your screen perfectly and I can see the slides.
Okay, I think I've already earned Prosecco at 5 o'clock, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Okay, so hello everyone. It's kind of weird not having interaction with you all, but I'm going to chat as if you are actually all there, not just I'm standing in a room talking to myself, which is a bit of an odd thing to do. I'm going to talk to you not just about the financial impacts, but about the whole lot. I'm assuming all of you are trainers because we're talking about UKATA, or we're coming through UKATA. I want to talk to you about the physical, the psychological, and the financial impacts of implementing proper wellbeing policies and within our industry, because let's face it, our industry is pretty unique, isn't it? And this is the next thing. Yeah, there we go. So I have been in the asbestos industry for, well, I'm starting to not want to admit it, but it's definitely more than 3 whole decades. When we had some new staff, we had a new administrator for the marketing team, and she shouted that across the office, the open plan office, which I was not chuffed about at all. But anyway, I have done the whole lot. That's me, and all those photos from the air testing, the surveying, the training, advice, you name it, we do it. And I love it. I genuinely love my job. I love that after you've gone through the initial training, every single day is different. I love that today I'm standing with a nice top on, I've got nice shoes, not that any of you can see them, whereas yesterday I was on the steelworks in my full PPE. And I do mean the full lot. So, and I love that. I absolutely love that. What I love about it is that whole health and safety. Now, we know, and you know, because you're all trainers, so I don't want to teach you to suck eggs, so I'm going to skim through all the bits I kind of expect you to know. Through the health and safety side of it, we were the first country in the whole world to have a Health and Safety at Work Act. We were the first country to have an industrial revolution, and we are now one of the first countries to have a de-industrialisation of the place. What we know from all the figures we've been collecting and the work that people have done literally over the last 50 years is that the actual workplace deaths have come down considerably. We know that each year we'll have in the region of about 180 occupational deaths. And what I mean by that is somebody goes to work, wallop, there's an accident, something happens, and that person does not go home. So that's what an occupational death is. In addition to that, and this is what a lot of you will be working towards just now, we know that there is a work-related skin diseases, bladder diseases. I'm not going to read through all of these stats, you can see them yourselves. This third one from the bottom, asbestos deaths. We know, and that's why we are doing so much training with UKATA, why you all do that training, that this year, 2025, we were expecting over 5,000 deaths from asbestos-related disease, and that's not acceptable. We think that up to 8% of all cancers can be coming from things that people are doing at work. Now, I'll bet every single person on this call knows somebody or has been affected directly by cancer. So if we can reduce 8% of that total, look how good a job we can be doing. Altogether, from that wait and see attitude, we put people into working situations and we wait and see what happens. This is the legacy of that. We think there are about 30,000 deaths per annum from occupational ill health. So people have retired, perhaps retired early, and then it takes them a few years to pass over. So what do we do? How do we manage this wonderful health and safety that people from other countries come all the way to Britain to have a look at? It's about all we look at the moment, isn't it? Let's not talk about politics if we can help it. The key legislation, as you know, is the Health and Safety at Work Act. You've got to make the workplace safe, you've got to keep it safe. And then the Management of Health and Safety at Work regs, which says you've got to have your risk assessment for all tasks and prove that you are managing that data. The biggest thing, the most dramatic and the fastest change, of course, is COVID. Huge and rapid changes in work practices, in managing absence and in managing illness in work. And there's a lot of changes at the moment going on in our work lives. We've got obviously COVID. It was the biggest and swiftest change to UK working lives since the Second World War. Which is massive when you sit back and think of that. I bet everybody remembers where they were when that announcement was made to go home and stay home. I know I do. So it was a massive shift. Seeing our main motorway networks, the main motorway arteries, totally devoid of traffic was a really spooky feeling. Staffing, you just can't get staff, can you? And I know it's not me, it's across the board. There are just none. There really aren't. Political. I don't even want to say that. You know, I'm going to have a sip of tea just with saying the word political. If you look at how much our world has changed just since Christmas on that political front, it gives you an idea of how much the current changes are to our working life. Societal changes. It's all pretty much up there with the political, isn't it? It's not great. And then, of course, you've got social media. As companies, as trainers, really we are facing trial without any comeback. You don't get a voice of your own when it comes to social media if you get bad reviews, if you get somebody who's cross with you, etc., etc. So that's really what we're facing as a collective, as a group, and it's across the whole of the UK, not just in our asbestos industry, not just in the training industry. The pre-COVID attitude, now bearing in mind that's only 2019, I'm not talking about Second World War, I'm not talking about the First World War, I'm talking about literally 6 years ago. And absolutely the attitude was bosses were in charge and they told you what to do, isn't it? This is what we're going to do. And then during the COVID, it was a very different experience with everybody saying help and everybody had to literally muck in and just for your business to keep going, particularly in those early days before anybody kind of got into their stride. And then post-COVID, so as we're coming actually even into the second lockdown, but definitely as we were starting to come through things in 2020, there was a different attitude again. And it was very much about the staff now saying to the bosses, we're a team, that's it. And once you get to that feeling of we're a team, and that expectation and the realization from your staff, from your workers, you cannot go back on that. You cannot say, go back into your box. Everybody has to be in work full time now. Look at the problems that caused when the old-fashioned way of managing your business was sort of reignited or restarted, or tried to be restarted anyway. So what are we going to do? What do we need to manage all these huge changes? There's two things we need to be looking at. We need to be looking at the pace of change, and we need also to be looking and managing expectancy of response times. Why? Why do we need to manage these? Let's look at the pace of change. I love this phrase. It comes from Steve Bartlett, who's one of the dragons on the Dragon's Den, and I don't know terribly much more about him. But what he said is, we know the world is changing at an accelerated rate. And it's getting quicker. So if you're in your 40s now and you live through 1 year of change, right? By the time you're 60, you will go through that same amount of change, but just in 3 months. That's what this is saying. And if you're 10 years old now, so those of you who have children or grandchildren, you will experience that same rate of change in just 11 days. Isn't that staggering? And if you look back through history, look at our technological age. I feel like curtsying for saying that properly. When you looked at the first mobile phones, and I know people on this webinar had one of these, I know the first one was 1987, and it was like a brick. You had to have 2 hands to pick it up, it was so heavy. The first ones were 1997. There's a massive charging station as well, it was great. And it took 13 years to get to a telephone that was small enough to sit inside your pocket or inside a small handbag, because everything before that was clunky and big. So that's 13 years. Technology advanced, it advanced, and then all of a sudden it took from the first flip phone with a screen in 2004 to the first smartphone only took 3 years. So we've gone from a 13-year expanse of time down to 3 years. And if you look at that iPhone, they haven't changed that much, have they, in the last almost 20 years now? But that rapid change as we're developing technology and coming up with new ideas. And we're seeing that very much at the moment with AI. Huge changes in some of the technological industries where AI is literally taking jobs. There's been shrinkage of about 40% in jobs in the online games industry. So those of you who've got kids who are playing on, what's it called, Roblox, that's all AI generated now, almost all AI generated now. So the rate of change is so quick. The expectancy response time as well. I don't know about you, but I'm a pretty busy woman. So if somebody sends me an email, I consider myself quite lucky if I get at the end of the day to sit down for half an hour and go through my emails and then hopefully put a whole load in the bin because it's just spam and deal with the proper ones. So that's if I'm lucky at the end of the day. And if I'm not lucky, it'll be a couple of days depending on what's going on. And yet, response times, employers and managers, we think it's reasonable to respond in about 12 hours, maybe 24. And yet, what the super office and all these wonderful, what do they call them? Oh my gosh, menopause moment. Surveys, thank you. Survey people are looking at, they say 88% of customers, that's almost all of your customers, expect a response within 1 hour. How very dare you not be sat at the machine waiting for them to ask you a question. You have to manage that, don't you? So how is all of that coming into health and safety? We are facing massive business changes right now, massive. And we're also facing massive health and safety changes. How is it relevant? Our entire world is different. It really does. And those of you who don't think that or don't agree with it, I don't even know what to say to you other than you need to listen to more webinars like this, okay? And possibly read some decent or look at some decent news outlets. Our whole world has changed. We've got the ambulance chasers, the no win, no fees, and we've got social blinking media. Absolutely, we do. So and with all the changes that are going to continue happening this year, we know, despite what our politicians say, we are very much facing a recession, aren't we? And as trainers, what's the very first thing that most companies slash from their budgets is training costs, isn't it? So we need to be looking at how do we manage that? How do we make sure that we are going to be thriving even though others don't? We need to rely, as we have always done in our industry, we've always relied on legislation. We have always relied on processes. We've always relied on procedures, and we've always relied on covering our backs. Now we need to do that more than ever. The whole topic of well-being is an excellent, excellent shelter from this storm that we are in right now. And I'm not talking about the hijacked well-being. You're the one that's been hijacked by hippies, where yoga is good for any day with a Y in it, and fruit on Fridays, so that you bring it in on a Friday, no one eats it, you have a fruit fly infestation by Tuesday. So that's not what I'm talking about well-being. When I talk about well-being, I'm talking about the pillars of our community and the pillars of how we actually can exist in a good place. The topic of well-being, it covers societal health, and nobody really on this call can change that. We don't affect much change. That's to do with, do you live in a patriarchal society, a feudal, matriarchal? What type of society do you live in? Depending on what type of society you live in, then there's a lot of data. So people like me, because I'm that interesting a person, people like me can go and look up the data and say, what are the health expectations of somebody living in this type of society? So that's what societal health means. Environmental health, some of you will actually have an effect on this, because that's what type of environment do you live in? Do you have heating? Do you have hot and cold running water? Do you have your bins collected regularly? If you live in Birmingham, no, you don't. If you live down here in Chepstow, so far, yes, you do. So that's what environmental health is. What's the actual location where you live and how healthy is that? And then you've got individual health, which up until just before pre-COVID, so 2018, 2019, that concentrated just on physical health. That was it. And now, and I think quite rightly, we know for individual health, it covers it's the 6 pillars of health. So there's your mental health, and people say such stupid things about mental health. They say, oh, he's got mental health, he's going to be off for a while. What the hell does that mean, for goodness sake? Every single living being in our world, on this planet, has mental health. The only people who don't have mental health are dead people. That's it. Now, you may have good mental health, or you may have mental ill health, but you all have mental health. Emotional health as well. I'm guessing that we're all adults on this call, so everyone's been through some sort of heartbreak, whether that's losing a loved one, bereavement, splitting up, whatever. Physically, you're fine. And mentally, you're fine, but your heart's broken, you can't go to work. Or if you do go to work, you're a mess and you're just making everybody's lives a misery because they're cleaning up after you. Your social health, that's to do with how good are you at forming relationships? How quickly can you do it? And how robust are those? And then your spiritual and sexual, clearly, it's none of your business what people are like, what they agree with, what they don't believe in, etc. But it is your responsibility to say, do I have a workplace that's safe for a non-atheist to come to? Do I have a workplace that's safe for a non-heterosexual person to come to? That's where we're looking at. And it's great. And I really absolutely believe with every fibre of my being that this whole, if you follow this, then it really is an excellent way to work, and you can really start thriving in it. How do I know it? How can I be so confident it's an excellent resource? It's from my personal experience. Absolutely it is. We have had absolutely no replacement recruitment for 2 years. And the first time I looked at this, it was Christmas time, and a well-known recruitment lot had sent me a Christmas box. And they obviously knew me quite well because there was a bottle of Prosecco and there was a bottle of gin. And then there was a small bottle of vodka for anyone else that might want it. And I thought, oh, that's lovely. And after a while, I thought, hang on a minute. How come a supplier is sending me this for Christmas? And I went to finance and I said, how much have we spent with so-and-so? And this is a few years ago now, and we'd spent in excess of £60,000 on recruitment costs with this person. Last year, we spent not a single penny. So I didn't get my Christmas box, but that's okay. The company has 60, not 16, £60,000 in my bank as opposed to somebody else's bank. The staff satisfaction is increasing year upon year. And I know that because we measure it. It's all anonymous. I get other people in so that the staff don't think I'm stalking them or anything. And our average employment time is far greater than 7 years, which is pretty good, really. What else can I tell you? We have absolutely no work-related stress absence in our place, and haven't for quite a few years. And the staff are more invested in our company. And the philosophy, which is saving lives every single day. So I love it. So I think it's a good place to work, and the figures, the data is supporting that. I started implementing wellbeing in the workplace back in 2005, which is a very long time ago. I was considered a hippie. People that know me from then, they know that I get teased about unicorns and all that stuff. So how did I get from that to being a firm believer, and then having Kellyanne saying, will you come and talk to the rest of the members about this? What are the next steps I'm going to do? And what can you learn from my experience? I'm not one of these person that kind of hoards all the info to myself and I'm going to be great and you're going to be rubbish. We can all be great. Why can't we all be great? I am going to be talking about things that might trigger you. I don't know who's on this call and I don't know what your stories are. So yeah, so just if you need to just have a cup of tea or something like that, then by all means do so. But I am going to be it's not a therapy session, but I will be just touching on some unpleasant topics or some topics that may be raw for you. So just be aware of that. Take a deep breath. Okay, so my story, I think many of you on this call know me, so you know what my story is. This was 2004, the bottom right photo, and that's my actual natural colour of hair. Would you believe it? I was not always purple. This was back in 2004, that was my honeymoon. And this is a few days before Boxing Day. And we were in Cambodia, and then we went to the top left photo, which is the luscious green bit, that was in Thailand. And then we got caught up in the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami. And it was horrific. It really, really was. So my husband and I, we both made it out alive. We are two of approximately 60 people to get out of our hotel of 425 souls. So the others just didn't make it. And when I came back, I was physically, I was fine. Absolutely, I was fine. And everything else, I said about the 6 pillars of health, of physical health, everything was broken. Absolutely. And what I came back to was a workplace and a work environment, not just my workplace, the whole of Britain. What the survivors came back to was this. It was still that wait and see attitude. There was no such thing as PTSD when I came back from that tsunami, which I definitely had. So there just wasn't any help to give. At best, soldiers, PTSD would be for soldiers, but it was still called shell shock. And it was very much a case of, well, just have some time off, away you go, that's it. And we were looking at the physical bits of it. So I even came into the office because physically I was okay. Mentally, I was not. Emotionally, I was not. Spiritually, I was not. I was just an absolute basket case. What do we know from the physical benefits? The physical benefits of this wait and see attitude. We know that through each year, just from the data that we collect, in our previously heavy industry, of which there's getting less and less and less, we know last year there were 220 deaths in 2024. That's occupational death. Someone goes to work and they're killed at work. We normally bounce around about the 180. We also know there's 61,000 injuries reported at work, which sounds a lot, but actually we've got almost 37 million people working in the UK. So if you look at 61,000 injuries as a percentage, I worked it out with my calculator, 0.16%. So we're doing pretty good. The physical benefits of health and safety, people stay at work. There's less absences, more work attendances. But it's all physical safety. So when I came back in 2005, I had about 3 months off. I just couldn't be in work. And when I did come back, people were trying to not talk to me and walk away because I don't really know what to say. How are we going to do this? How's that now? 20 something years later. It is 20, it's 2025, isn't it? 20 years later. If you look at the top 4 reasons for absence in 2 years ago, the top one is mental ill health. It's not mental health, it's mental ill health. The next one down, musculoskeletal injury. So your back injuries, your sore backs, and we all do that training, don't we? How to lift and all the rest of it. Then you've got minor illnesses and acute medical conditions. So slots 2, 3, and 4 are still in that physical health, aren't they? But the top one is mental health. Look at this again for mental health. You know this from asbestos, it's a prescribed disease. So anytime somebody passes away from asbestos, there's a coroner's report and we can say, right, what gender were they? What age were they? What industry did they work in? And from that, we can plot to say, right, how are we going to protect these people? And we're doing that. There's 37 different pieces of regulation covering all of this. And that's what we should be teaching people. Look at the stat underneath. There's about 6,000 deaths per annum from suicide. And suicide is also a prescribed death. So we get the same type of data. We get, if someone passes from suicide, then we get their gender, their date at time of death, and we get the area where they lived. And what we can do from that is we analyse it. So what we know is of these 6,000 deaths per annum, 80% of them are men, they're male, and they are between the ages of 18 and 45. And all of a sudden, that puts them in the work bracket, doesn't it? And that's where we can catch them. And that's where this change of legislation comes from. It's not because we're a nice, caring society. It's because we've got more people passing away from suicide than we do from asbestos-related deaths. We've got 37 different regulations governing working with asbestos, and there's nothing to help with suicides. So that's where the push for mental health came. Also, if you look at the type of industries we work in, pre-COVID, this was still, I mean, they are older photos, but we still had an industry-based workforce in the UK. And now we just don't. We've gone from this heavy industry to this. People are working from home. At best, they're doing hybrid working. We're all a service sector careers. That's what we're doing, isn't it? Training. And then no kid these days wants to be an engineer. They all want to be these peculiar plastic people, who I don't even know what they do. They seem to just live in extraordinary wealth and then get more for doing that. I don't really understand it. But that's what the youngsters of these days want to do, isn't it? So let's look at the psychological side of things. We're looking at happy staff versus unhappy staff. If you have unhappy staff, they're just miserable to be with, aren't they? And they really are a positivity drain. Any of you who've been in meetings with that person, you're like, no, please don't ask them to the meeting. We'll never get anything done. They are most certainly not problem solvers. And right now, this year, with everything that we're going to be facing as a community, we need problem solvers. In addition to that, because of this, the whole suicide rate and who is in that bracket, who's the highest risk, the HSE have actively stated there should be no work-related stress in the workplace. So pretty interesting. Let's have a look at most common mental ill health issues. Please don't call it mental health anymore. The top 6, you can read them: depression, anxiety, panic attacks. I'm not going to go into what each one of these is. I'm just going to assume that you know. 2020, the top level for the top list for being off for mental ill health was depression, followed by anxiety, followed by panic attacks, followed by stress. What we're expecting, we don't have the figures yet for 2024, but we are expecting that to have flipped. So within 4 years, literally, those 4 have totally swapped places. And this is because you don't just catch stress. You don't just catch it. It's not like a cold. It's not like COVID. Someone sneezes on you and you've got it too. Stress builds up. So you frequently start off coming through the depression. Then that moves into anxiety and it moves along the chain. So we need to look at this. Why is it so important? Now, I need to be careful talking about stress because I love the topic. I absolutely do. It's one of the reasons why I always keep slides with me when I'm talking about it, because otherwise I'll just go off piste and talk about it for ages. The stress response, because people say a lot of rubbish about stress. People say things like, oh, stress, it's a leftover from the days where we were hunted by saber-toothed tigers. And we don't need it anymore in our society, blah, 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 blah. If you are talking to someone who's telling you that, sack them immediately, right? Don't talk to consultants who are telling you such rubbish. Saber-toothed tigers went extinct 10 to 12,000 years ago. If we didn't need the stress response, we wouldn't have it. And the other interesting thing is every single creature, not just mammal, every single creature on planet Earth has a stress response. It's an amazing design of nature, and the sole purpose of it, the sole point, is to keep that creature alive, whether it's a human or something else. So in humans, we've got our kidneys, just above your spine at the back, either side. If you ball your fists and put them either side of your spine, just above your waist, that's where your kidneys are. And on top of your kidneys is a little gland, and it holds the hormone of adrenaline. And if you are in a perceived life-threatening event, then the adrenal gland secretes adrenaline into your kidney, it floods your system, and that's what triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response. So these gazelles, they're not stressed, but they're wary. They're just looking. And if something triggers them, they will then run. If there's lionesses there, they will run from those lionesses, and it will be a run for their lives. So that's what the stress response is. The stress response is a perfect natural defense against impending doom, right? And I honestly, with hand on heart, I can say the stress response has saved my life on 2 separate different occasions. It's a good thing. The stress definition in Britain by the HSE is not the stress response. It's a stress loop, because if you're in a working situation where adrenaline is getting released all the time, then you're not giving the response, you're giving a loop, and then your body starts to change and work in different ways. The HSE say it's about excessive pressures. Now, pressure is not the same as stress. I'm the managing director. I have a very actually high pressure job, and I love it. I really love it. Same person, same me, I do not react well to actual stress. Obviously, I've had PTSD in the past. I really need to avoid that adrenaline running through my body. It doesn't do good things for me. So that stress loop for me is bad things happen. So you need to be aware and change your language. People talk about stress. Oh my God, there was a spider in the bath this morning. I'm so stressed. A flick of hair. That is not stress. That is drama. Okay. Oh my God, I just broke a nail. That is not stress. That is drama. There's a difference. You've got drama, you've got pressure, and then you have stress. They're different things. I said already, stress is not an illness. You can't catch it. Just because I'm stressed doesn't mean my husband is stressed. Excuse me. And then the final one, which causes a bit of grumping sometimes, is that stress is a state of mind. This is what the HSE are saying. If you are not overly pressured, you are not stressed. What happens to you in the workplace? If you've got an employee, if they're stressed, then obviously they're not going to be performing well because their body is being flooded with a hormone. You can't change it. So they're not thinking about, I've got to get this deadline done. What they're thinking is, my heart is racing. I've got sweats. I'm really feeling quite anxious. I need to just get up and move. Poor decision making, of course. They're frequently late and regular periods of being absent, and they don't care. They really stop caring about you, don't they? How does that work for you as an employer? It's the same thing. They've got inconsistent performance, which means you're going to be cross with them. They've got poor decision making, which means you're going to be cross with them and frequently wiping up their messes. They're off all the time. You can't rely on them. You've got to get temps in. And then, of course, if it is actual stress and they're off and it's work-related stress, you absolutely are facing litigation. So tribunals, absolutely you are. If it's prolonged and relentless stress, then it can lead to a complete physical and mental breakdown of the individual. If somebody goes through that, then you're looking really at 2 to 3 years for them to recover. It's a really, really serious thing, and the litigation is considerable. Okay, so legislation, remember, we're proper health and safety people. We're trainers. We don't just sit there saying, oh my God, what are we going to do? What do? We get ourselves educated. The HSE are saying stress, work stress, is the adverse reaction people have to excessive pressures or other demands placed at work. It's not employment law. Loads and loads of companies and individuals have gone through wellbeing from an HR point of view, and I don't agree with that. It has to be driven by health and safety because it's our legislation that's looking after all of this. Okay, so how are we going to fix it? The HSE are coming to the rescue. They've stated there should be no absence from work for work-related stress. But instead of just saying that and walking away, they've given you tools. What they're saying, and there's a bit of carrot and stick, obviously. The stick is saying the bottom purple bit where you can see overview. Employers have a legal duty to protect workers from stress at work. Stress at work. It's not your fault if they're having stress at home, but you do have to support them through that. But if it's stress at work, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You have to do risk assessments, act upon the blinking thing. Don't just shove it in your top drawer or put it in your later email box. So, and it's exactly the same as we've always done through health and safety, exactly the same. If you Google or just go on to the HSE website, you can find this. The management standards are brilliant. There are 6 main areas of work that literally, if you read the management standards, this is what you do. And it's they hold your hand, same as they've always done. You look at the demands, what demands are put on the person at work. And what I get mine to do, my staff, is have 2 columns. So I'll say, right, what demands do I put on you at work? So for example, my finance girl, she needs to have all the right money in the right place at the right time to pay people, because otherwise they don't come back to work on the Monday. So that's a demand. I expect her to do that. So there's the demands of your bosses and your colleagues, and then do another column of what demands you put on yourself. And if you do it for all of this, it's a really, really good exercise to do. And you as an employer can do this with your staff. Okay, The thing I love about this, about the psychological benefits of health and safety and proper health and safety, is that every single person on this call can do this. You don't have to have a psychology degree. It's about talking, it's about communicating. You need to talk to each other and listen to each other. In my house, I have 3 teenagers, a very messy husband, and 2 dogs. And every now and again, I'm going to write it on the wall at some point. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should be listening twice as much as you speak. Psychological, yeah, change the workplace. I don't know how many people I'm still seeing in the workplace, in their workplace, where it's a name, blame, and shame culture, which is, there's no excuse for that. Shove that out the door, kick it out right now, and bring in the support and grow culture. Your staff self-esteem, if they are constantly worried about judgment and about what you're going to be saying to them, is directly linked to your company's reputation, because you can see them, they kind of fold in on themselves. It's not good at all. The company culture it's the DNA of the whole company, and it absolutely comes directly from the top. So if you've got a toxic top tier, or if you're in a much larger, I know that sometimes there's council people on this, so it might be that your department's great, but another department isn't. It's quite toxic, and it's the DNA of the people at the absolute top. This all comes from leadership, and for those who are in management or aspiring to management, actions are the evidence that staff look at, not the words. They really don't. Psychological benefits, if you can get this right, if you crack it, and the absolute basics, get every single member of staff to have mental health awareness, everyone. Particularly if we've got a real mixed age group within our company. So I think the youngest one is about 23-ish, and then the oldest ones are very far past retirement age. Let's put it that. That's as politically as I can, correct as I can say it. Mental health first aiders. We say it depends what your setup is. We tend to advise kind of about 1 mental health first aider for about 15 staff, but it depends how you are working. If you're all office based, you wouldn't need that many. If you're all spread out, you would need more. An open culture, just make it okay for people to ask questions. Create learning curves and not judgment pools. Since we changed our language and made, right, okay, we're on a steep learning curve this week, people, what have we learned from this morning's absolute debacle? That sort of thing. We're all trainers, all of us. Every single, well, I'm assuming you are that. Why else would you be on a UKATA webinar? And we know poor trainers, they lean on fear. So if you're doing the asbestos training, you say, oh, 1 fibre is going to, kill you from 700 paces. You shouldn't be doing UKATA training courses, but that's not training. That's fear mongering. And that's not what UKATA stands for. Good trainers, we inspire people because they want, and we make them want to learn. They want to help each other. They want to affect actual change, and they genuinely want to make their world a better place. Absolutely. So that's the psychological benefits. And finally, into the financial benefits. See if you reevaluate what you are spending. So that recruitment fee, when I said about, hang on a minute, why are they sending me? It was a really lovely box, don't get me wrong. It was a lovely Christmas gift. But I said, that's a lot of money to be sending on recruitment. Why did I spend that on recruitment? Okay, is it a case of not everybody likes me and wants to work with me? And I get that. I really do. I understand that. But also I'm the MD of the company. So if you don't like me, you probably shouldn't be working for the company, should you? No, you shouldn't. What we're looking at is how are you integrating with your staff? How are you not keeping your staff as in, please don't go, but making it a nice workplace. Now, if there are HR people on this call, stick your fingers in your ears. When we came back from COVID, I kind of put down a mandate and I said to those who were in charge of recruiting, I said, you are hereby forbidden to, and I don't often issue instructions, but I said, you're hereby forbidden to employ anybody unless you would go for a pint afterwards, after work. And so many of their first thing they said was, I don't drink. I said, you don't have to drink alcohol. It's the point. Would you choose to socialise with that person after work? And if the answer is no, don't employ them. And we've even written it into, they must have a personality that fits with our team. And just from making that, I have saved year upon year, I have saved thousands of pounds on recruitment, simply by not having to replace staff. Last year was the first year in quite a while where I used a recruitment agency, but that was a definite decision because we were growing part of the business and I wanted someone to come in pretty quick and take up the reins. And it was a new post, it wasn't a replacement post. So that's, which was what, I don't know, 4,500-ish. So I've gone from £60,000 and a recurring amount, because we all know the recruitment people then wait 2 or 3 years and phone up the same people to move them on, don't we? Which is not very nice. But I've had that one fee, and that was my first one in, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years. So it's good, it's saving me thousands. HR agency fees, I am saving an enormous amount of that because now what I do is I don't expect tribunals, I don't expect messy situations where I think, oh my goodness, I have to sack staff or anything. I really, really don't. So I just subscribe basic fees to keep me up to date with legislation. What's changing? What do I need to know about? Absence, we have such low absences, and the absences we have, we manage really, really well. Also, I'll do individual packages. So there's a massive difference between a staff member who is undergoing cancer treatment and needs time off regularly for all of that, as opposed to somebody who has an ongoing chronic situation like diabetes. And we tailor them. And so people don't, my staff, genuinely, I can say hand on heart, they don't get resentful and say, well, he's had more time off than me, because they know it's tailored to that person's individual needs. The recovery time as well has absolutely quartered, because you check all of these, don't you? Stage returns, we haven't had any. We did have to last year, but that was following significant major surgery. And they're quite strict, so I think quite kind. Those of you who know my chief exec and know he had heart surgery last year, sometimes I can be quite brutal with him, but you know, that's a bit different because he wants to come back to work and just live there. So you have to manage them. Our insurance premiums for absence have gone down by 300%. Financial benefits, we don't have departments, we have teams, and these photos are very evident of the different teams that I have. The teams, the first couple of times we went out, I went as well, and then they started organising it on their own, which the first time you're like, oh, I've been left out, but actually I was so chuffed that they're doing their own community and buying into it, that it's okay, and I don't go out with them now, other than Christmas. And I just collect positive feedback for my staff and for my teams. I collect that all the time. The benefit of that is if you then have an issue where you don't have positive feedback, you can instantly say why, what's different about that. What else do we do, which is absolutely a financial benefit? And this is a hidden one, because when I first started up these daily meetings, every single morning we will have a stand-up meeting with the whole company. And no matter where they are, they have to sign in for at least 3 a week. And sometimes they're sat at a desk, sometimes they're on the phone, sometimes they're on the phone in a van, but they have to attend. The first one was like pulling teeth. It was about 42 minutes. It was awful. And now we're down every single day to less than 10 minutes. Everybody knows what's going on in the company. Everybody knows who needs support. If anyone who's got a slack time can then offer to help out with people who are overworked. So we don't get to that stress situation. Absolutely, we don't. Also, which has been a lovely feedback from that, is that we've had employee ideas of how we can just tweak working practices to have more efficiency, and better products as well, absolutely. The ones that you can see, we were talking about social media, and I have quite strong opinions on what I don't want to do for social media, like, you know, Twitter and Facebook and any of these pits of writhing vipers. And one of the girls had said about Instagram, and I said, I thought that was for people doing videos. And she said, yeah. I said, we're a health and safety company. She said, no, we have to do it. We have to do it. So that's an ongoing discussion in ours at the moment. I'm on a very steep learning curve about things I don't want to learn about. But it's good. Everybody has a voice. So how are you going to do this? How are you going to bring it all together? Write this down. If it's the only thing you write down all day, write this down. You want the HSG guidance note 65, and that's the Plan, Do, Check, Act. But you can, I love that because you can adapt it to anything. We have a lot of neurodiversity in our households. One of my kids is autistic, and I literally have applied the Plan, Do, Check, Act to the state of the little cherub's bedroom. So saying, this is the plan, is it's going to be tidy. This is what we're going to do in a constant loop to check that it gets there. It's not working yet, but you know, give it a minimum of 3 years. You are not going to change things overnight, even if you want to, you're not. Choose your allies within your working group. So not everyone within your organisation is going to have the same enthusiasm or ideas as you. So get allies and get buy-in from the top. Absolutely do. Put in structures. Your team briefings, they are essential. At first, it is like pulling teeth, and you will think we are wasting money on this, but you're not. The amount of time that it saves, you honestly will make that money back tenfold within the first 3 months. So we've had a great toolbox with the Health and Safety at Work Act. We absolutely have, and with the management regs. But now we're going to need a bigger boat. We need a better toolbox. This is what we're going to be doing, and this is what I want all of you to do. I want you to, first of all, to start looking after your own mental health. You put your own oxygen masks on first, and then what we're looking at is your well-being in your company and how your team can be affected in a positive way, because there'll be a ripple effect through everybody else. Look at your primary prevention, your demands control. I said this is earlier on, and just Google it. It's all on the Health and Safety website. April is Stress Awareness Month. You cannot turn on any sort of media without seeing stuff about stress. It doesn't all have to be bad. If you're reading things that say, oh, stress is to be avoided at all times, that's rubbish. The stress response is a brilliant, brilliant tool, but that's what it should be. You take out a tool from your box, you use it, and you put it back in. That's what the stress response should be. And if you're reading other stuff that goes off, you know, and says, but oh, I don't even know what to say, press stop, delete it, okay? And then the PDA, this is what you do. So again, take a photo of this slide. The very, very first step is you. You cannot look after, you cannot grow a company, you cannot respond properly to everything that's coming in terms of budget slashing, blah, 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 unless you yourself are in a good place. So put primary support for yourself. And then what do you need to do next? What's your organisation's stress policy? Just check if you got one, which you certainly should have, and how are you fixing that? What are you doing about it? And HSG 65 is excellent. Okay, Kellyanne, I think that's me done. My name is still Emma. If anybody on, we don't do Twitter because I don't agree with the person that owns it and I refuse to call it the other name. We don't do Facebook because it's a pit of toxicity. But we do LinkedIn because so far that's okay. And if people want to track us down and get in touch, then that's how they do it. Okay, how are you doing, Kellyanne?
Emma, that was so insightful. Thank you so much. And I think within your presentation, there's a lot of sobering facts and stories that really hits home, doesn't it? And yeah, so I definitely took notes through that webinar. So a massive, massive thank you. And I can't believe the time's just gone. It was
I
so
know, I was looking at it thinking, oh, I've got to talk faster.
no, it was brilliant, and I really hope that our audience today really embraced what you were saying. So looking at the Q&A, Emma, we don't seem to have any questions.
Oh, I never know if that's a
However,
good thing or a bad thing.
well, I bet they've taken a lot from your presentation. But however, if anyone does have any questions after this, feel free to contact myself, and then I can get in touch with you, Emma. Again, this is what these webinars are for. Let's engage, let's ask the questions, let's all work together. So since there isn't any questions, Emma, I think
Okay. Are we saying cheerio then?
I don't want to. I mean, I really, I don't, but
Okay.
yeah, I've kept an eye. But like I say, please ask your questions after this, and then we could take it from there. But yeah, a very valuable session, Emma. I really appreciate that. Brilliant. So thank
That's
you.
okay. You're very welcome. Very welcome indeed.
So
when is your next webinar?
So our next webinar is going to be on the 29th. It is the 29th, and it is going to be on the topic of Gaza. We're just finalising everything today, and I will send that out. So please join us for that webinar at the end of the month. Just while we're sticking on with you, Emma, if we can keep the conversation going, like Emma said, feel free to connect with Emma, myself, UKATA, and share away your biggest takeaway from today. And let's keep engaging. So before we do go, just a quick reminder, I will be following up with an email, and that will include Emma's lovely presentation and the recording, and there will be a feedback form. Really appreciate if you give us that feedback. That's how we keep improving, we keep getting what you want, you ask, and we'll deliver. And just keep an eye, sign up to the UKATA newsletter for all the other webinars and etc. So again, Emma, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for asking me, and I hope to see you in person soon.
Brilliant. Thanks everyone joining,
Okay.
and have a fantastic day. Thank you so
Take care.
much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.